Hello and welcome to You with Jesus. In this story, Jesus leaves the hustle and bustle of the predominantly Jewish town of Capernaum and withdraws to the vicinity of Tyre. He's a long way from home right here. It's about a week's walk from Capernaum to Tyre in modern-day Lebanon. Let's read. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. As I mentioned, Tyre is not a Jewish city at all. It's a pagan city, a bastion of Roman might and splendour with a tremendous cosmopolitan busy port, the grand outdoor hippodrome. And while there, he planned for his presence to be low-key. No teaching, no miracles, just a brief retreat with his disciples in this beautiful seaside area. But, as often happens with celebrities, someone found out that the man called Jesus of Nazareth was staying in a house there. And so when Jesus walks out the front door, bam, here's this Phoenician woman, a non-Jew, a Greek, throwing herself at his feet, begging for a healing miracle for her daughter who was afflicted by a demon. In Matthew's account, it says the woman had been constantly badgering for Jesus, but her disciples kept blocking her efforts. I can't begin to describe to you how radically different it was. And in the minds of religious Jews, how blasphemous it was for a holy man such as Jesus, who people call rabbi, to allow these significant interactions with non-Jewish people to take place. Although Jesus was keen to stay under the radar during his time in Tyre, it's also possible that he went there precisely because this woman was there and she had a daughter who was in need. There are a number of encounters that Jesus has with people who the majority viewed as being outside the fold and therefore ritually unclean. The Samaritan woman, Zacchaeus, the evil tax collector, the lepers, the demon-possessed, the drunks, the prostitutes, the woman caught in adultery, the Roman centurion. All of these encounters demonstrate Jesus intended that the spiritual gifts of grace, mercy and compassion were to be for all, even though Jews got the first bite of the cherry. Many of Jesus' parables were ways of saying exactly the same thing, that those who are thought of as on the outside are welcome in his kingdom, and those who presume because of their pedigree to be on the inside are in fact, because of their stubbornness of heart and their self-reliance and self-righteousness, they are on the outside. So when a Syro-Phoenician woman, culturally Greek, who in regard to her ethnicity, we are told in Matthew's account, was a Canaanite, comes and falls in the dirt at Jesus' feet and begs for healing for her daughter, it would have been entirely consistent with Jesus' other interactions for Jesus to pronounce healing without hesitation. That was his heart. That was his practice. That was what he was known for. And yet here, Jesus does something very different. He plays hard to get. He says, first let the children eat all they want, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. This was, of course, the traditional point of view, that God's banquet table were for the chosen people, the children of Abraham, and they are first through the door. They are first to be seated. They should have priority over every other race, ethnicity, or religious group. Then when they are satisfied, and if there's anything left over, then and only then would Gentile dogs be thrown any tidbits. I can picture the disciples standing by when Jesus said this, nodding their heads, relieved that Jesus is supporting them in their efforts to send this woman away. But we know what happens when the disciples try to block annoying people from accessing Jesus. Remember the blessing of the children episode? And what is about to happen is not just for the benefit of the woman and her daughter, but it was going to be a huge learning for the disciples and set, in fact, the tone of the rest of the New Testament and the ministry of the church, that way out here among the Gentile dogs, God's favour would come. So Jesus plays along with their prejudice. He does this by parroting the official religious narrative, which by all accounts and in all his interactions, Jesus didn't subscribe to in any way at all. And this apparent resistance by Jesus to her request would not have been a surprise to her. She fully expected the pushback. That is why she's falling at his feet begging, because she knows she's an outsider. She knows that she doesn't deserve to receive mercy and assistance from a Jewish holy man. His response is entirely in keeping with her expectations. But she's desperate. And rather than disagree with his assessment of her as a Gentile dog, she says with great wit and humility, really, yes, that's true, but even the dogs get to eat the crumbs that fall from the children's table. Not only is she persistent, she is of the firm belief that Jesus has the power and the will to act, and she has used his line of logic to press her case even further. At this point, Jesus drops the charade altogether. For such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. In Matthew's account of the same story, Jesus also says to the woman, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." Jesus only commended 2 people in all the Gospels for their great faith. And both were outsiders, not insiders. In fact, regarding the Roman centurion, who was the other one of the 2, Jesus says specifically, "I have not seen such great faith in Israel." There is faith being evidenced here that should have been evidenced within Israel, but it wasn't. And when Jesus tells the parable of the great banquet, he alludes to this phenomenon by saying the invited guests are going to get thrown out and those on the outside are going to be welcomed in. Now, why did Jesus make it hard for her? Why did Jesus give off these superior racial vibes and give her the holier-than-thou treatment? For the same reason I believe that Jesus told parables. His love, mercy, grace, forgiveness and healing was free, but it wasn't cheap. He forced people to voice the fact that they really wanted this. He wanted them to go through a journey of self-discovery to the extent that he would unearth this beautiful faith that was resident in her all the time. God's gifts to all of us are free, but if there is no request, no asking, no persistence, no obvious yearning to receive them, then would we really value them if we casually receive them with no effort or cry from the heart? Elsewhere, Jesus says, "Ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you." It's interesting that each of these verbs, ask, seek, knock, they're used in the imperative mood, which means they're commands. Ask, seek, knock, and their grammatical structure implies an ongoing, repeated action, not a one-time event. So like the parables that require searching and digging to understand the truth, so too God withholds his favour and withholds simple answers to our problems in order that we may grow in our relationship with him and in a revelation of who he is. So it's ask and keep on asking, seek and keep on seeking, knock and keep on knocking. Recently, I was reading something in the Bible and I was trying to understand why Jesus said a certain thing. And I knew I could just Google it, get 3 opinions on Google and choose the one I like best. Or now with Google AI, just type it in and get it, bang, there's your answer right there. And just as I was about to type my question into Google, I felt the Lord stop me and say, ask me. You know, we talk to Siri, we talk to Google, we talk to GPT, whoever else you talk to. And because we want quick, easy answers that don't require too much digging. We want others to have done the hard work. But that's not how relationship grows. That's not how understanding comes. That's not how revelation in your spirit happens. And so in this instance, I prayed and nothing. And I prayed again, Lord, what's going on here? And I prayed again and I'm not getting an answer. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to lie down here on the lounge for a moment and maybe have a 10-minute nap. When I wake up, maybe I'll have the answer. At that moment that I laid my head down, the Lord started showing me what was meant. And they were things I'd never seen before. I was so glad I didn't go to Google because I'm getting it directly from the Holy Spirit. God's gifts and revelations are free, but they're not cheap. And Jesus chose a Canaanite woman. He went to the middle of the West Bank, as it were, into Hezbollah territory, into hostile territory among people perceived by the establishment as Gentile dogs, to make the point that God's gifts are for all who seek Him with all their heart. See you in the next episode.